Is it? Oh man. Good morning. Welcome to Coffee and Convo Houston. Good morning. Thank you for joining Coffee and Convo Houston, live with RE and Chosen. Today's special guest, FD Sparkman.
Brown all the time. I need like a white screen.
Thank you for joining Coffee and Convo Houston. I'm your host, RE, ready for peace, Strickland. And we're live with Chosen and special guest, FD Sparkman. Today's show is the
Hey,
Pitfall.
hey,
Did you just say hey, hey?
hey. It's a good day.
You're
You
right,
know
it
what I'm
is.
saying? It's a good day.
Today's
You got
topic
your
is the
help you.
pitfalls of self hatred. And before we get into today's topic, we're going to have Chosen give us a recap of last week's show, the importance of a support system, fatherhood, positive motivation.
All right, so like she just said, last week's show was the importance of support systems. Fatherhood last Sunday was Father Day. So, we dug in a little bit of that. One of the bullet points that we talked about was basically it takes a village. Um, everybody needs a support system, and then shine a light on the fathers. um we talked about that one thing that a lot of people tend to butt heads on was it takes a father to raise a son. um but that's pretty much what it was. If you did not catch that episode, we have that episode on the YouTube page. You can go back and you can watch the previous episodes of almost, if not every conversation that we have had since we've been going live for for all over a year. So
Almost a year,
for
almost a year.
almost
Be a
almost
year
a
in
year,
August,
yeah. So
yes.
exactly, that's right, that's right. Yep, thank
Be a
you,
year
my
in
bad.
August.
So yeah, so that's pretty much where we were with that one. Awesome show last week. Had some good views and yeah.
Now,
So
speaking of
today,
last week's show, we did have some feedback. There were some female parents that were offended.
Outrage.
Yes, offended because we stated that a woman cannot raise a man. FD, before we go into today's show, would you like to reiterate why you made that statement?
I have to use some of the things that Chosen was saying. When you grow up one sided, you grow up one sided. What I like about us three is that you have Chosen who has more balance than either you or I. And
Hmm.
you were raised by a single mother. I was raised by a single mother. Now, my issue was everywhere I went in the military, people always told me that I act like a female because
Mm,
I did. I sounded like a female. I voiced my emotions and my opinions like a female because I had no other point of reference.
okay.
Now, you can get upset and you can be offended, but if I have no point of reference other than a woman's point of view, then what am I going to put out there?
Understandable. All right. Now, right into today's show. FD, you actually chose this topic of self hatred. So we're going to go ahead and go right on into it and let you start us off.
Okay, well, one of the things about self hatred is you usually don't see it and you feel it, but you don't see it. And most people, they do recognize it, but they tend to try to ignore it, push it down. But when they're alone and they're by themselves, you ever know those people that just can't stand to be by themselves, that can't stand to be alone?
No, I don't know. I'm not one of those people. I enjoy being by myself.
Well, what I'm saying is, you telling me that in your long life, you never met anyone like that? That
I
one
can't put
person
my
that always
finger
got to
on
have
it.
somebody go with them, always got to have somebody roll with them. They just can't do
Ah,
anything alone.
now
They
you
got to have a herd,
explain how
have
you
a
see that
crew,
as self-hatred.
because people like that tend to avoid situations where they are alone. Because when you're alone, you start thinking. When you start thinking, you start going through your past, your actions, things you've been doing, things that you say. And most people like that have an issue with self hatred. It sends them into some form of depression, anger, and everything. And all they can do is find wrong in everything they do.
Hmm. Okay. Now, I have a quote that you has for self-hatred. It says, "In a world full of lies, honest people begin to hate themselves because they can't seem to go along with lies." Can you expound on that for me?
Yeah, it's like this whole new super liberal thing. I'm not a conservative, I'm not a liberal, but there are a lot of people that say that they are one or the other. And what I found is that you have a bunch of people that tell you how to think, what to think, how you should look at things, and people get upset with you when you don't toe the line and you don't agree. In that aspect, there's no room for individuality. Well,
Mm,
everything that we do when it comes to serving the Most High is an individual thing. There is no such thing as groupthink. And when you are surrounded by people that are trying to tell you what to think, how you should feel about this, how you should feel about that, and you try to say something different, they'll shut you down, shout you down, call you names, and make you feel bad about yourself just because you have an alternative point of view.
hmm. Okay, Joseph, what do you think?
Well, when you talk about when we talk about self hatred, like I had stated once before we started having this conversation, like I look at some of where the origin of self hatred come from. Self hatred can come from people around you that make you, people around you that say things to you that you might be self-conscious about. Like we talked about it, like talked about it earlier, self-hatred can also come from family members.
Hmm.
um, Maybe one of those secrets or whatever, and
Mm,
they know something about you, that you don't know, and you wonder, okay, why do they treat me like this, and why do they so well, you're not uh it could be from that. Then it could also come from, um, you know, if you just look at like how some of those commercials were back in the day. Have you ever seen that one? Not the commercial. It was the experiment, where they had the
the Philadelphia?
dolls.
No, oh, okay. I was about to say, what
No,
you bringing up? The
where they
Philadelphia
yeah.
experiment?
No. Where they had the dolls, where they had, where they had the black kid talk about the doll with skin color, and they said, well, why do you not like that dog? Because that dog was led, they was led to be, that dog is ugly. It doesn't look like the other dog. When you get a lot of that from, it can come from that. It can come from, like I said, like family members. It can come from being bullied. Self-hatred can come from, the origin of self-hatred can come from a lot of different things. Um, but what the root of it is just not having that, is not having that degree of self-love, not being able to
Not really
see
knowing who
that,
you are.
not being able to see that self-love because you haven't. Okay, so what I want to go back to now is like what Frederick said when Frederick was talking about people that's always around somebody, don't want to be alone.
Hmm.
Part of that reason why they don't want to be alone is because they'll be faced with themselves. So there are
Okay.
things about them that they do not like about themselves. So if I constantly have company around me, I don't have to look at that. One pain, one pain, what is it? It's my train of thought acting real retarded this morning. uh how one pain gets rid of another pain. So,
That sounds
if
more
you
like
have,
misery loves company to me.
not
Uh,
necessarily.
Exactly.
I mean, because I mean, one. Okay, so you remember Major Payne
yeah.
when Homeboy was talking about, oh, I got shot. He said, "Want me to get your he said, want me to get your mind off that bullet wound?" So he broke his finger. Like one pain cancels out another pain. So it's like the cover up. So the cover up is you might those people might uh surround themselves with other people in hopes to finding what they need to find within themselves around other people instead of doing the due diligence and being by themselves or with themselves and saying, okay, hey, all right, self, this is what we're gonna deal with. But that sometimes that self-hatred is so deep that you just really don't want to deal with it. You really don't want to, they really don't want to deal with it. So you'll find those types of people surrounding themselves with other people.
Okay, we have a comment here. Leroy says, "What about being antisocial?" Ooh.
Antisocial is usually somebody that loves to be by themselves and they don't want to be around other people because of the way those people behave, treat you, or come at you. In most cases, antisocial behavior, if it is introverted or extroverted in some cases, is basically because people have done you wrong and you don't want to continue the process. I don't want to continue to expose myself to these type of people, these type of situations and or circumstances.
And that I can agree with. I can agree with that.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that as well. There's certain places that people go to that they just feel like, okay, I don't connect with this ilk of people. Like
Mhm.
like a long time ago, like when I
Perfect
would go
word,
to the
ilk.
club, yeah, like I would go to the club and it got to a point to where I go to the club and go to sleep. I won't say nothing to nobody and just be like, and they're just like,
Okay.
it's really,
So self hatred, let's get it understood out here. Self hatred is the intense dislike of oneself. It's not really the people around you. It's not your environment. It could be something that had happened in your past. It could be any type of trauma that makes you look at yourself as though you are less than the next. You know that you are
hmm
worthless, and you internalize that hatred and basically taking it out on yourself. I would say at times these are things that would lead to uh, certain what's the disorders like eating disorders, cutting, uh, addictions. These are the things that one person deals with internally because of not knowing who they are. And like you said, chosen, it can come from family members. Family members may know a secret about you and treat you differently from the rest of the family, what we
black sheep.
normally would call the black sheep. Right.
Yeah, the black sheep.
And you're right, it can also come from bullying. Bullying, I want to say it's a reflection of the person, that of what they see in themselves and how they feel in themselves, and they take it out on another. It's attacking one's self-esteem. So after so many years of this type of treatment, negative talk, you get into a place where you start to believe the things that are said to you.
hmm
Okay, so that leads to your idea of who you are. You're taking in what someone else is saying, the lies someone else is throwing at you, and but starting to believe it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's that absorbing. You
Yeah,
start to absorb
anything
those
that
things.
distorts your self image. You got to remember,
exactly.
self hatred is about hating your self image.
hmm
And it's the way when you look at something, like you ever heard somebody say, I just don't like the way they look at me.
Hmm.
Well, sometimes people are studying you and seeing your external behaviors and they're classifying you in such a way. Whereas you may keep trying to go down this street, but somehow you always end up on Rushmore. I mean, it's just those little behavioristic traits that cause other people to put you in this box.
Okay,
You know,
now
once you get put in the box, you feel like you need to escape.
what about, I know we did a show on expectations, and I know at one point FD, you stated that expectations, depending on the expectations, are delusional. What about, there was a conversation, I had a conversation with someone. It was about the Michael
I
Jackson
said
song.
unrealistic expectations are
Okay.
delusional.
So let's address false
That's what I brought up. La
expectations.
La Land.
Let's address false expectations.
Well, self hatred has more to do with what keeps happening to you.
Hmm.
It has more to do with when, let's say, I'll go and do this, and my circle and my cycle remains. So, and then you can sit there and hate yourself because you seem unable to break your circle or your cycle. If you ever notice, most of the people that have certain things about themselves that they hate, it could be a part of their body, it could be their voice, it could be their face, it can be anything that causes them to look at themselves, as you put it, as less than.
Hmm. Now that would fall
So,
under comparisons when you're constantly comparing yourself to the next person. What what their hair is like, what their eyes may be like, why their nose is shaped a certain way, why uh, their weight. It's comparisons. Comparisons can cause you to start hating yourself because you're not looking at the authenticity within yourself. What makes you you?
Or you don't know where to, you don't, sometimes you don't look at that because you haven't, sometimes people haven't been shown that too. Like sometimes that's why I say affirmations can come from anybody. If you have a lack of affirmation from people that speak life into you, you won't be able to see it, because even still hard sometimes when you're self-conscious about a lot of things that people can still speak life into you, but if you don't believe it, then it's almost words falling on deaf ears. But do you see how crazy that works though? We sometimes we navigate, or sometimes we gravitate towards the negative a lot more than we would the positive, because like somebody could sit up and tell you, uh like okay, okay, let's say you got something on your face.
Hmm.
You walk around but you don't know it. You got something on your face. Somebody tell you got something on your face, you don't feel it, so you might play it off. You walk around and then somebody else say the same thing, and then you be like, then you start thinking, okay, well maybe I do. You start, then somebody else say the same thing, and then it's like, okay, now it's time to look in the mirror. So it's
now I'm
people that
starting to
keep,
feel self conscious.
yeah,
Hmm.
now you starting, okay, now you had that awareness about what that is, about what might be around your face, or what it is that somebody see. Now you start trying to look at it to see. And so just like you said, Ari, you hear it from a lot of you. If you hear it from multiple people, the same thing from multiple people, then you'll start being like, okay, well maybe this is it. Then you start believing it.
Hmm.
So, and it's for some odd reason it's always hard. It's always easier to accept that negative than it is that positive. Because sometimes when people say, "Hey man, you talented, you smart, you're very enlightened and this and that," it feel good for a time, but it seems like that it seems like sometimes that negative thing lasts a little bit. It hit different.
You know, your
That's
favorite
mostly
movie,
because of environment.
Scott Pilgrim, just came to mind for some reason.
Hey, that movie, hey, it's silly. It ain't for a lot of people, but I see the symbolism in it. Okay,
Hmm.
now what were you finna say about it?
It reminds me of him, the main character. It really reminds me of the main character because
But mhm.
he was this wimpy kid. I say wimpy, nerdy, but
What's wrong with being a
he,
nerd?
hey,
Well, see,
I'm
I
a
see what
nerd.
she's getting. Okay, so I see what she's getting at. Okay, so what it was like. Okay, what it is he he has a lot that people can sit up and say about him. Okay,
Hmm.
you're 22 years old. You're 22 years old. Uh, you have an underwhelming. Your presence is underwhelming. You don't have no stable job. Uh, you dating a high schooler, because that's what he was doing in there. So you
Hmm.
got all these things about you that's going on that people can like really get at you if they really want to talk, to make you
If they really
self-conscious
want to
about.
talk about it.
But the
Hmm.
reason why he went down into that sunken place is because if you remember, he uh he got dumped, he got cheated
hmm
on, and he got left. So that right there, okay, it's like, Why? What was wrong with me? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're starting to look at all these things and these flaws within yourself to see where did you go wrong. And sometimes it don't even be you. Sometimes it be them that the people that these people are. Sometimes it's people that are happy with themselves, and
And
later
that's
on,
my
like after
point.
you, yeah, so they're unhappy
Well,
with
see,
themselves. So
that's
what?
that goes back to where I wanted to go.
Okay.
Your environment, like you were saying
Mm-hmm.
before. Now, if you're surrounded by idiots and you're smart, then you're going to have a bad environment
Right. So he
because every
had so
yeah.
he had a lot of good attributes. Dude was in a band. Dude
Mm-hmm.
had good intentions. He had like all this other stuff going for him. And as you could tell, like the movie made it comical where he could fight, so he could stand up for himself. It's just the thing that happened is this one person broke him down and made him not like this. Yeah, as you can see, he always went to the little dream sequence. And when
Mm-hmm.
he go to the dream sequence, he was like, "Oh God, I'm so alone. Help me," and all that. You know what I'm saying? So it was like not being able to see the worth within yourself. So at the end of it, say, okay, what did it say? It said Scott learned the art of self-respect. Scott
Mm-hmm.
learned self-love. It was like then the girl that he was trying to fight for, it was like she told him in the things is that in the little dream sequence, what the dream sequence kind of symbolized was him being in isolation and him talking to his higher self. So when the girl
Mm-hmm.
came and said, he said he told her, he said, I fought hard for you. And she said, maybe I wasn't the one that you should have been fighting for. So it was like it was his spiritual self telling him and basically giving him the answer of to what you should have been really doing. Instead of some pill where you don't have everything all figured out right now. Like you still learning a lot of this stuff. So you don't need to
And we're
hate
going to be
yourself.
learning throughout
Yeah.
the rest of our lives, you know.
Yeah, so you need to. So this is what you need to learn. Like this wasn't the time for you to be fighting for someone else. It's like you got all this stuff going, and you need to be fighting for yourself. It's good you brought
Right.
that movie up though, because there was a lot of self hatred in that movie. It was
Yes,
like
it
he was like,
was.
yeah,
Okay, so
Well,
FD,
one one of the biggest roots of self hatred is shame.
shame,
shame.
exactly.
Exactly. That exactly. Now, you and I disagree on this scripture, but we're going to run with it. And you're going to give me the scripture that you feel that, suits self hatred. And we're going into spiritual warfare here, just to be clear. Now, I chose 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Now, I believe when we go into spiritual warfare, that is one of the perfect scriptures to stand on to battle this, to battle self hatred.
Now, if you go, do you have that other scripture that I asked you to look up?
Haha, that was what James
123, I believe. I'm not sure.
1:23 through 24. Okay.
Well, I don't remember it by heart. I don't have a Bible sitting right here.
Okay, so go ahead and speak on that scripture. That is the one where
But
he
it's
says,
saying like when you're in the word and you don't follow the word,
you're
it's
not a
like you're
doer of the
looking
word.
into a mirror. And then as soon as you leave the word, you forget what manner of person you are. You forget what you look
Mm-hmm.
like. Well, self-hatred, like I always say, is like it's like a glass box. You feel trapped because you're looking this way and you're looking for a reflection of yourself. Whereas in actuality, I say glass and not a mirror because the reflection that I'm looking for is I'm looking for the most high. I'm looking to see the most high in me in some kind of
Okay.
way. So as long as I'm seeing a clear glass, I'm seeing how the outside world is viewing me rather than looking at how the most high is looking at me.
I can see that. I can see that. Okay. So you're saying that the self-hatred you're unable to defeat self-hatred because you're constantly looking at the view of the world's perspective instead of looking at the scripture of what the most high tell you who you are.
You could listen to your conscience and your spirit being and know that it's different than what the world is telling you.
Okay.
So
Okay, I'm
when
gonna
you
let you
start
have
going
that.
with world, you go with your own destruction. because that's what in a
Interesting.
nutshell, self-hatred leads to self-destruction.
Interesting. We're going to come back to that because, I told you I have a poem that I wrote called Self Destruct. And it is about um, the weight of the world and the the way the world is treating this person in this poem, and they're at a point where they're about to just ready to give up. They are ready to give up, and at that very point where they're feeling helpless, worthless, um, the very last thought that hit them is that everything that's going on, they can get past, and it'll be a lot better for them in the end if they just make it through, if they
People
just
are all hard to
not
fight
give
for a
up.
soldier.
Because what they're feeling is a lot harder for them than what anything will ever be. It's what you feel, you know. Um, those feelings, like it says, self hatred is the intense hatred. It's an intense emotion for self, So I get, go ahead.
You want to know why that is?
Why is that?
Because you know yourself better than anyone knows you. So you are the one that goes to bed with yourself every night. You're the one that
Mhm.
does everything with yourself. So it's like I said, it's like is you, then the nigga you.
Okay.
So the nigga you. So if you think about it, that negative part of you can take knows all your flaws. So it's like you can sit up and you can tell somebody something about you. You can talk all the good you want about yourself to somebody. They will get that. Then you can put the bad about you out to somebody too, and they can get a synopsis of it. But only you know all your good. Only you know all your bad. So when you get down on yourself and you see all of that stuff, it's like, okay, you can sit up and try to rationalize with yourself, and well, it's not all that bad, it's not all that bad, and I can drown this and this, and you really can't because you know you. So that's why it hits different. It hits different when it's self-hatred because you know the true you. You
I
deal
only
with you
got
every
one
day.
problem with that,
Okay.
Okay.
and that's when, as I said before, like you said, knowing yourself. Now, like I did that little test with you guys, say your name in your head. You have to make that happen. Now, you can be putting yourself down, but when a thought just pops in your head, putting you down, and you agree with that thought, now you're moving more towards self-hatred because you're supposed to hate yourself. That's what the enemy wants you to do. Because if you accept yourself, you like yourself, you love yourself, you're going to move towards something positive, towards building, towards gaining, towards loving, towards
I'm glad
knowing,
you mentioned
towards
that because I wanted to
experiencing.
go back to that. I was going to ask, why do you suppose one leans more to the negative? But I think you just answered it when you said the purpose is to hate yourself, to turn away from the positive, to turn away from who you really are. Because at the end of the day, the enemy is sent to kill, steal, and destroy. At the end of the day, it's about that. It's about destroying you and your purpose.
Yes, but one thing, self-hatred leads you to abandon hope.
I like that. That's okay. Good point. Very good point. Okay. So from there, we have a comment. And we are always harsher and harder on ourselves than others. This is from Rochelle. I guess this goes back to what you were saying, because, like you said, Chosen, we know ourselves better than anyone else. And we continuously replay we that negative aspect, that negative thought that we have of ourselves. And it's not, let's be fair here, it's not just the negative thoughts. It could be things like, I'm not good at sports, I'm not good at music, I'm
Hey,
not
that's
good,
reality.
I'm sorry.
That's reality. Like Psalm 15 says, Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle, who shall dwell on thy holy hill? And he says, he who speaketh the truth in his own heart. Now, you can sit here and give yourself a truth check. I don't like baseball. I'm not a great basketball player. I'm not the king of football. I've gotten fatter than I was when I was younger. These are
Mhm.
all true statements. They don't negatively impact my life other than, well, maybe me being fat impacts my health. But these are the things you got to tell yourself the truth. Okay, you could say, okay, I'm ugly, but somebody likes the way I look. You can say, my voice is horrible, but then I got people that listen to me all the time. So you have to remind yourself of the truth when that enemy comes a knocking and trying to tell you everything that's wrong. You have to remember that's a specific point of view. Lots of people like my voice. Okay, some women like fat men. I mean, you just got to go with what's true.
All right. Leroy says we can continue to do things that we aren't willing to live with that will cause us to lose our peace, or we can do things to bring joy with each new action that we choose to take. At what point do we make the decision to love, forgive, and give ourselves a chance for renewal to become someone that we can love and live with? Good question.
Well, that's every day. According to the Bible, this is the day the Lord hath made. Let us be glad and rejoice in it. Choose you this day whom shall ye serve. So each day that you choose to serve the Most High, you begin to copy the Most High, act like the Most High, praise the Most High. Then it's going to change you regardless. You might not even notice the change. You might walk outside smiling and whistling, and you don't even know why.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that because the change
Hmm.
it starts on the inside. You don't even know he's working, and just one day, all of a sudden, that thought has gone away, and you hadn't even realized you hadn't had that thought in for X amount of time, or that behavior. So I can agree with that. That's that hope you were speaking of. That's the hope. Chosen. What do you have to say? Oh, did he freeze? Looked like his
Yes, he
camera
did.
froze. All
Well,
right.
that's gonna give me the opportunity to go back to environment.
Okay.
A lot of people, I mean, when I was growing up in the hood, I had issues with the people around me because I was nothing like them. I wanted more from life than them. I wanted to go and try to achieve this. And anytime I tried to do anything, they would try to put you down or take something from you or always let you know something bad about yourself. Because, like you said, misery loves company.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have spent my entire life pursuing my own goals. Something like Leroy asked, what about being solitary? Well, that's fine. If I can't find anyone in my environment who shares my thoughts, beliefs, hopes, values, or characteristics, traits, or anything like that, then I'm going to tend to stand alone. Because what's they say? I can do bad all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need your help.
Yeah, which is true.
Okay. Thanks. Welcome back, Chosen.
Yeah, I don't know what
So I
happened.
was asking your opinion on what Leroy asked. At what point do we make the decision to love, forgive, and give ourselves a chance for renewal to become someone that we can love and live with?
Uh, there was a show that we did, and where Frederick was saying, and what Frederick said, basically what it is you have to choose that. It's I don't know if y'all heard, but if y'all ever noticed, it's always easier to destroy than it is to create.
Yes.
Okay, so to destroy something takes very little effort. To create something takes a lot more effort. Like some people are lazier than others, and some people it's easier to feel worthless than to even go find your worth. But once you find your worth, and you're like, okay, I did this, or like for instance, let's just say you go and you clean your house. It take work, but after you finish cleaning your house and moved around some stuff, you dusting it like and you dusting and you vacuuming and you cleaning it, and when it's all sparkling clear after that work is done, after you done got over saying, oh, I'm gonna get up this morning, I'm gonna clean this house. And when you finish cleaning that house, you almost like when you finish cleaning the house and then you have to go somewhere and you come back, you almost can't wait to get back to the house because you've
Mhm.
taken the time to do that work, that due diligence within that house so that it can be somewhere that you love to be. So it takes a made up mind to be like, okay, let me clean this house, this house on the inside. And by the time you get done cleaning all that clutter out and getting rid of all that dilly dally, shilly shally, then you feel good and you can look in yourself, you can look in your mirror and be like, okay, I love who I am. But it takes that time. You have to choose that day, like Frederick said, choose this day, and you sit up and say, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna clean this house. And when you do that, then that's when you start to see it, start seeing it unfold. Sometimes you can look at your house. Some houses might be dirtier than others. And you be like, man, like I done hoarded a whole lot of stuff. And we know this is gonna be a big task. But if you want to get on the other side of that to where everything is clean, then you just have to get up and do that. You have to get up and clean that house.
Okay.
So you have to
Uh,
do it now. It's like okay, when do we do this? Okay, we choose it now. You have to choose it right then and there.
so it's a
Yep.
choice.
It's a choice.
Everything is a choice.
Everything is a choice.
Okay, so some tips to heal. One, learn from the past. Frederick, go.
One, you reject any thought that is not your own. Two, you look at what it is you can do right now, not you're going to need 15 steps to accomplish. What can I do right now to better my situation? What can I do right now to better my sense of self worth? What can I do right now to improve my self image?
Okay. Chosen, replace negative self talk with self compassion. Go.
All right. I mean, like I said before, you know yourself better than anybody. You have to make that choice to say, okay, let me take all these attributes and put these attributes on the forefront. What am I good at? My talents, my passions, the things that uh, the things that like Frederick said too, you combat those things. Like he said, well, about the whole being fat, but it's people that like fat. So my thing used to be my height.
Mm,
So I would sit up and to combat that, I was like, well, shoot, it's almost like the Most High was telling me, say, if I had a gave you height, it wouldn't have been fair to nobody else. If I had a
okay.
given you height, I would have given you everything. You would have had everything. Or it's like, so I take my talents. So music, want to use that as something to put to shine more light on or to shine light on myself. You just take all your attributes and you put that out there in the forefront, and you continue to decrease or minimize the negative aspects, you know, to find balance. So
Okay.
you have to get up and you just actually have to just not even joke about yourself. Don't even joke about yourself because your body don't know the
Yeah,
difference.
that's another thing. Some people joke, taking shots at themselves to make themselves feel comfortable and accepted around others.
Hmm.
And it's like if they do it first, then no one else will.
What's up, Frederick?
Defense
Go
mechanism.
ahead, Frederick.
Now, that's a defense mechanism.
Hmm.
Me, I've always believed if I snatch it before you get to it, then you got nothing.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I said like don't even joke about yourself because
Yeah.
your body don't, your mind, your spirit, your body and your mind don't know the difference. You just joking with yourself, and it's like it's still a
Well,
spell. You still put it out
that's,
there.
I guess that would be for weaker minded individuals. I had to say people that haven't walked that road for a long time. For me, I have to find humor in everything because in every day that you walk outside, you either one breath away from crying or one breath away from laughing.
Mm.
Hmm.
So I try to make sure that I'm laughing at everything that I see because it can
Right.
always get worse.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. So another tip is to renew your mind. This goes back to learning who you are. You have to see who you are in through your creator's eyes, not through the eyes of the world. That is very, very important because this world can tell you who they think you are, who they want you to be, who they feel you should be, and miss the mark, lead you down the bumpiest road of your life. And four, forgive yourself. FD, go.
Was forgiving myself. I'd say that that has more to do with what I've done wrong or I've done to others because I had a serious problem with self hatred. And
Mm-hmm.
what I would do is I attack the people that made me feel less than. I attacked the people that had those things to say about me. And I used to be kind of
Interesting.
a cruel person. And I would do everything I could to smash them because that's how it felt inside when they did it to me. So for
Interesting.
me, it all ended with, like you said, with forgiveness. First, I went to the Most High and I asked for the root of why do I keep, following this same circle? Why do I still have this same cycle? And he took me to self hatred. And in my dream, it was like a clear glass piece of glass. And I smashed it and kept smashing it until it broke. And then once it broke, was the first time in my life that I was able to see me as I truly was and appreciate and value the gift that God had given me.
Okay, that's interesting. And you said you that was more of a retaliation because
Yes.
you wanted them to feel the pain that they caused you.
Well, when other people are always saying this about you, and if you for 1 second agree with them and think it's true, who you're gonna hate?
Mm,
You're gonna hate you.
mm.
You always turn everything in on yourself. So the biggest thing about self-hatred is it leads to self-destruction because we always try to destroy what we hate.
And then
How
you
many truth
ultimately wind
tellers
up destroying.
do you know hate lies?
Hmm.
You
Interesting.
try to get
Yeah.
rid of anybody around you that's lying, correct?
Correct. All right. So let's go into our bullet points and chosen. Go.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said before, the biggest one of the biggest takeaways is like where that self hatred can originate from. Self hatred can originate from family members. You being the black sheep, it could be bullying, and then that rejection, which I really didn't get a chance to, which we really didn't touch on. That rejection can go into that self hatred too. It's like, okay, well, why? What am I always doing wrong? Why am I always being left out? And then you start, like I said, you start looking at the other side and you start looking more of what's wrong, what you feel is wrong with you. Those self-conscious things start coming up. And then you start dwelling on that. And that right there leads to the pitfalls of that. So the pitfall, so one of the bullet points that I really want to stress on was the pitfall of the whole self-hatred thing. You stop believing in yourself. Then you stop believing in the dreams and the goals you start setting for yourself. And then you can fall off into a deep depression. You can fall off to a point to where you just don't really want to deal with nobody. So when people start talking about antisocial, like earlier when Leroy was talking about being antisocial, it's
Hmm.
two things with that. The one thing that I agree, of course, I don't disagree with anything he said, but it's just two sides of it. That anti-socialist coming from, okay, I'm above this, and like being somewhere that you feel out of place, where you just don't connect with folks. Or whenever you do get to that point to where you down into that sunken place and you anti-social, it's just because you just holding on to whatever hope you have left, because you've fallen so deep down into that place where you just feel unworthy, that you're just trying to trying to claw out of anything or out of that hole. So if you go around people but not talk, maybe you, like we said earlier, maybe you just around them just so that you can be like, maybe at that rope, maybe somebody put this rope down here and I can climb out of here. But the pitfall of it is, you just, all of that stuff with self-hatred, you can be depressed, you can be on the edge of just not, not wanting to be around no more. So those are the pitfalls, and that's why it's so important to say earlier about what we were saying. To say earlier of um, talking, speaking life over yourself. It's a
Hmm.
song, an inspirational song, gospel song. It says, "Speak over yourself."
Hmm.
Just like you know yourself, you have dominion. You have dominion over yourself given to you by the Most High. So you choose to sit up and say, I know I'm of royalty. I'm better than this,
Hmm.
and this is better for me. And this is, so you have that to do, and the enemy will always try to give it to you to where you um will choose destruction of yourself before you choose the restoration of yourself, so to speak. So that's pretty
Okay.
much the bullet point that I really wanted to touch on, because I don't think we really touched on like the pitfalls of self-hatred.
Hmm. I like the
Or
way
I ain't
you
gonna say
summed that.
touched on, I'm gonna say the elaboration of the pitfalls of self-hatred. We elaborated on it.
Well, you hit the nail on the head when you brought up rejection,
Mm-hmm.
because
You did.
that goes a lot towards the environment thing. And one of the things that I wanted to hit on as far as your environment, if you're smart and you're hanging around people that are not as smart as you, bad company corrupts good character.
Yes.
So you have to put yourself in a position to where if I know that I'm the smartest one in the group, I need a new group. Because I need to find me a group where I got people that I can learn from, I can grow with, and we can express ourselves honestly. Uh,
Right.
One of the things you really have to look at about your environment is if you are surrounding yourself with a bunch of unbelievers, they're not
Mm-hmm.
rejecting you, they're rejecting the one that sent you.
Mm. Again, the enemy comes to
Yeah.
kill, steal, and destroy. Okay. And FD, your bullet points.
I thought I just hit it. In life, everything they say in sociology is about your environment. We create our own environment. If you're hating yourself because of your environment, change your environment. Do what it takes. If you need to move over here, if you need to get another job, pray on it, ask the Most High what to do. You don't need to live in a toxic swamp to feel like you like everybody else. We're supposed to be a kingdom of peculiar people, kings and priests. So
Mhm.
we're supposed to go out there in authority and we're supposed to worship the Most High and be peculiar while we're doing it. We're not supposed to be like everybody else. If you find yourself sitting next to a pool of acid, go to another place, build yourself a pool and fill it with water.
Mhm.
Okay, so for your bullet points, we had hope deferred makes the heart sick. That's where you said self hatred destroys hope.
Yeah,
And when
that's when I
people
was
are
talking
surrounded
about
by
the
evil,
cycles
they
that you
begin.
can't break.
Go ahead.
That's when I was talking about the cycles you can't break, but keep going.
Hmm. You also said when people are surrounded by evil, they begin to hate doing good. And sin and a lack of understanding causes us to resent our self image.
Correct. But we discussed all of that.
We did. That's why it's called bullet points.
Okay, my bad.
Okay. Okay, now going back to the tips for tips to heal, these are not the only things that can be done to help you get out of the cycle of self hatred. These are some of the simplest things I would say we've put out here and learning from the past as far as um, if you are the cause of some, like Frederick said, some pain to others, and that may have caused you to start disliking yourself. Okay, learn from those mistakes and replacing the self talk with self compassion. As Chosen said, affirmations are needed. They are needed. Wake up in the morning, look at yourself, and tell yourself you are beautiful, you're handsome, you will succeed. No matter what comes your way, you're going to do your best to overcome. One thing for me this year is I've been facing my fears. Facing my fears. I've been real big on facing my fears this year. Um, I've been terrified of certain things. One thing is really driving. I've been so terrified with that, but I did it. I did it. I wanted to be there for someone that's very dear for me. I had no problems with going, down the street, around the corner to the store, run my errands, but to drive what I considered a long distance, and that would be 30 minutes and over in traffic, that's a long distance to me. um, but I wanted to be there for someone that is very dear to me. So I faced that fear. It wasn't um, me saying, okay, I'm going to get up and do this. I'm going to get up and do this today. It was more, my goal was to be there for that person. My desire to be there for them was more important than any fear I had. So I would say face some of your fears, renew your mind, start thinking differently about who you are and what you're capable of. And in my opinion, this will help uh, fight the self hatred that you may have for yourself. Okay. Um, Chosen. What do you have to say about that?
Uh, Another one of the tips. I mean, I agree with what you said because that's definitely a big one is facing your fears. Um, I still got to go back to support systems too,
Mhm.
because being around people that help lift you up, that's another big tip to help healing. Is it's only so much of self healing you can do yourself. That self healing that you do yourself is pretty much more of a self assessment of who you are, of what like your imperfections, your insecurities, and you facing those. You can do that on your own for just so you can do that part on your own. The other part that comes in where you need other people is just being around like-minded individuals coming up with different ideas because you don't know everything. We don't know everything, and we're not meant to be. And I don't believe we're meant to know everything. We're not meant to just be by ourselves. You need other people. That's why other people are around. But you have to know you have to know what sect or what kind of people to be around.
That goes back to what FD said. If you're the brightest Crayola in the box, you need to go get
You
around
need to go
another.
get into another box. Yeah.
Go get into
You need to
another
be
box.
around you need to be around the fluorescence and the pastels, you know what I'm saying? So
Because as he stated, as scripture says, bad company corrupts. How did it go?
Bad
Good
company
manners.
corrupts good
Bad
character.
company corrupts good manners. And that is
Character.
true.
character.
Character.
There is good manner, character, good
Yeah.
character. It goes back to the show we had about I think it was friendship. Was it friendship? Where we were talking about how friends can coerce you into doing things that you wouldn't normally do, and the next thing you know, you in a heap of trouble because of what a friend suggested you should be doing.
You mean
Then your
so-called
friends
friends?
ain't your friends.
Then your friends ain't your
You mean
friends.
so-called
Then
friends?
your friends ain't your friends.
Speaking of that, I would even say, as Frederick said earlier, as we were talking about making jokes about yourself, if these people are calling themselves your friends and the only thing they are doing is highlighting your flaws, they're really not your friends. And agree?
Unless
Y'all
you're the
agree?
smartest one in the group.
But you know that but you correlate that to what we usually call sneak dissing.
Mm,
Like,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? We
yes,
correlate that to like
yes.
sneak dissing. You know, you can be around somebody that every time they got something, they got like a wise crack to say. They throw out them little
Mm-hmm.
old jabs or whatever. And then at the end they put in there, yeah, but you my boy though, so that's the
Yeah.
only reason why. But sometimes that be sneak this and they really be coming at your neck and
Mm-hmm.
and they just be sneak this and them really ain't your friends,
Those really aren't
so
your friends. And that's sad because that's a lot. There's a lot of that going on. A
hmm
lot of that going on. This is not just friends. This is family members as well. You know,
yeah.
So-called
it,
friends. You can't do nothing about family.
that's not true. You actually wrote a book about that. It's
You
called, and
can
you have in there that says cut slings.
Yeah, but you'll still be kin to them. You just don't have to deal with them.
You just don't have to deal with them. And
mhm.
sometimes that is the best thing to do in life. Cut slings. There was a post on Facebook where it says, some of the things that we go through in life, whether it be sickness, um, even the mental states, if it can all be taken care of if you just do certain things, eat certain things, get rid of certain people, things. A lot of your problems will disappear if you change. Though who you hang around, the types of food you eat,
Yeah.
get on a daily routine, things of that nature.
Change your regimen up. You can't get something different.
Anybody that messes with your peace, cut slings.
Cut slings. But the reality of it is some have accepted the behavior as just being that person. They don't mean anything by it.
Oh, they know
And
better than
that's
that.
go for it. Go ahead. You look like
You
you're about to say
always
something.
know. You just don't always want to admit it. And we
And
make
that's what I was
excuses for
about to
people
say.
because we don't want to be alone.
Hmm.
So we tolerate bad behavior, negative talk, because as you stated, you just don't want to be alone. Sometimes it's also you've known that person for so long and you don't feel as though that relationship needs to be uh, canceled because of how many years have been invested. And sometimes that is the best thing to do
Right.
for your sanity.
Yeah. You ever left weights outside the rain?
Rust.
There you go. So if you got a relationship that's long and it's rusty and it's still weighing you down, it's about time you either go get you a tool and get all the rust off the weights, shine them up, and get them back to new. So no matter what, hey man, we've been together this long, but these are some issues that I've been dealing with you for years, and I'm feeling like if these issues aren't changed, then we're going to have to go our separate ways.
Mm, that's the way you put that. All right. Well, thank you for joining Coffee and Convo Houston live with RE and Chosen special guest FD Sparkman. I hope you got something out of today's show to help you elevate into the next level. If you have any questions, comments, before we go, we do have a comment. Leroy says, it's okay if they are periodically pointing out flaws to help build an individual up and speaking truth for constructive criticism, or unless the individual don't want to hear where they can be better at. Uh, okay, that's interesting
Well, that's
because
iron sharpens iron.
I
yeah,
was
go
just gonna
ahead.
say that. Yep.
Yeah, that's different because
Constructive
it
criticism does not count in what we're talking about.
yes. Um, Now I don't think there's anything constructive with saying, you know, like we were talking about earlier, the weight, the maybe the
Yes.
hair, the nose, even joking about someone's finances, their car, things of that nature. That's not constructive criticism.
Well, in certain aspects, what Leroy is saying and what all men will tell you the way we razz each other is if you have the ability to, in fact, make a change and go out there and make it different than what it is, then I expect you to do it as my friend and as you trying to be a better person. You just sitting there and wallowing in a heap of trash, it's not acceptable. Not if you're my friend.
All right, and that's our last comment of the show. Please join us again next Sunday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you for joining. Enjoy your day.
God bless.
God bless.